The Infinite Game, by Simon Sinek. Introduction. Imagine this. It's 1968, deep in the jungles of Vietnam. The United States, the most powerful military force the world has ever seen, is locked in a brutal war. By every traditional measure, America is dominating. In battle after battle, they repel every single attack. They have superior technology, more resources, and an army that wins the vast majority of its fights. In one major offensive, America loses fewer than 1,000 soldiers, while their opponent, North Vietnam, loses over 35,000. So, here's the question that baffled generals and politicians for decades. How do you win almost every battle, decimate your enemy, and still lose the war? The answer to that puzzle is the key to understanding one of the most profound and overlooked truths about success, fulfillment, and leadership in our own lives. It's a secret hidden in plain sight, and today, we're going to unlock it together. We're diving into a book that fundamentally changed the way I see the world, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Sinek is a thinker whose work, including the viral TA Talk and blockbuster book Start With Why, has reshaped boardrooms and inspired millions. But with The Infinite Game, he gives us a lens that does more than just inspire. It gives us clarity. It reveals that in business, in our careers, and even in life itself, most of us are playing the wrong game. We're chasing finish lines that don't exist, trying to win at things that can't be won. By the end of our time together today, I promise you this. You will understand the two types of games we all play. And you'll see why knowing the difference is the single most important factor for building something that lasts. A great company, a fulfilling career, or a meaningful life. You'll learn why companies like Apple thrive for generations while others crumble, and why some leaders inspire unwavering trust and loyalty while others breed only fear and anxiety. This isn't just about business theory. This is a new way of seeing the world. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, let's begin. Book summary. Imagine you're standing at a fork in the road. One sign points to victory, the other to fulfillment. Which path do you choose? This simple choice is the heart of Simon Sinek's powerful idea. He learned from a philosopher named James Carse that there are two, and only two, kinds of games in this world: finite games and infinite games. A finite game is one you know well. Think of a football game. There are known players, a fixed set of rules, and an agreed-upon objective. When the time runs out, a winner is declared, the game ends, and everyone goes home. It has a clear beginning, middle, and end. But then there's the other kind of game. An infinite game. Think of friendship. Or marriage. Or your education. Who are the players? Well, some you know, but new ones can join at any time. What are the rules? There are no exact, agreed-upon rules, just conventions we follow. And most importantly, when does it end? It doesn't. There's no finish line. No one is ever declared the winner of friendship or the winner of careers. The objective in an infinite game isn't to win, it's to keep playing. It's to perpetuate the game. Now, here's the problem Sinek points out, the one that causes so much trouble in our world. Look around at the language our leaders use. In business, politics, everywhere. They talk constantly about winning. About being number one. About beating the competition. They are playing with a finite mindset in a game that is, by its very nature, infinite. Business is an infinite game. New players can enter at any time. The rules are changeable. And there is no finish line. No one is ever crowned the winner of business. Companies don't win, they just survive long enough to keep playing. Or they run out of the will and the resources to continue, and they drop out of the game. We call that bankruptcy, or maybe a merger. This mismatch, playing a finite game in an infinite arena, is the root cause of so much dysfunction. It's why we see toxic, cutthroat work environments, mass layoffs to meet arbitrary quarterly targets, and leaders who prioritize short-term profits over the long-term health of their people and their company. Sinek tells a fantastic story that brings this to life. Some years ago, he spoke at an education summit for Microsoft, and a few months later, at one for Apple. At the Microsoft event, he noticed something peculiar. The majority of the speakers spent a good chunk of their presentations talking about how they were going to beat Apple. Their focus was entirely external, on their competitor. Then he went to the Apple event. And 100% of the speakers spent 100% of their time talking about how Apple was trying to help teachers teach and help students learn. One company was obsessed with its rival. The other was obsessed with its cause. At the time, Microsoft had just launched the Zune, their answer to the iPod. And Sinek admits, it was a fantastic device. Elegantly designed, a beautiful user interface, in many ways, it was better than the iPod. After his talk at Apple, Sinek shared a taxi with a senior Apple executive. Stirring the pot a little, Sinek turned to him and said, "You know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune, and it is so much better than your iPod Touch." The Apple executive just looked at him, smiled, and replied, "I have no doubt." And that was it. The conversation was over. The executive was completely unfazed. He wasn't playing the game of who has the better MP3 player today. He was playing a different game. An infinite game. Apple wasn't trying to outdo Microsoft. Apple was trying to outdo itself. They were already thinking about what came after the iPod. And about a year later, they released the first iPhone, a device that made both the iPod and the Zune almost completely obsolete. Microsoft, with its finite mindset, was trying to win the current battle. Apple, with its infinite mindset, was focused on advancing its cause for generations to come. That's the difference. This brings us back to that battlefield in Vietnam. The United States was playing a finite game. They were there to win the war, to achieve a political objective, and then go home. They measured progress in body counts and battles won. But the North Vietnamese were playing an infinite game. They weren't fighting to win a battle. They were fighting for their independence, for their very existence. As one North Vietnamese leader told the American Secretary of Defense after the war, "We were fighting for our independence, and we would fight to the last man. No amount of U.S. pressure would ever have stopped us." America didn't lose the Vietnam War. It simply ran out of the will and the resources to keep playing, and was forced to drop out of the game. So, if we want to build organizations that last, if we want to find fulfillment in our work, we have to learn to play with an infinite mindset. And Sinek gives us a roadmap. He says any leader who wants to adopt an infinite mindset must follow 5 essential practices. The first, and most important, is to advance a just cause. What is a just cause? It's not a mission statement about being the best or maximizing shareholder value. A just cause is a specific vision of a future state that does not yet exist, a future so appealing that people are willing to make sacrifices to help bring it into reality. Sinek tells the harrowing and deeply moving story of a botanist named Nikolai Vavilov. Growing up in Russia at a time of devastating famine, Vavilov dedicated his life to a single, profound cause: to end hunger forever. He traveled the world collecting seeds from thousands of food crops, creating a seed bank, a backup of the world's food supply in case of a catastrophe. But Vavilov was living in Stalin's Soviet Union. He was arrested on false charges and, tragically, the man who devoted his life to ending hunger died of starvation in a prison cell. At the time of his death, the city of Leningrad, where his seed bank was hidden, was under a brutal 900-day siege by the Nazis. Over 1 million citizens died, many from starvation. People were eating their pets, boiling leather, and even resorting to cannibalism to survive. And all the while, Vavilov's small team of scientists were guarding his priceless collection of seeds and potatoes, tons of edible food, in the heart of the starving city. The Nazis were desperately hunting for the seed bank, but Vavilov's team protected it. Surrounded by a bounty that could have saved their own lives, they refused to eat a single seed. In the end, 9 of those scientists starved to death, protecting the collection. Why? Why would they make such an ultimate sacrifice? One of the survivors explained it years later. He said it wasn't difficult to refrain from eating the collection. Why? For what was involved was the cause of your life, the cause of your comrades' lives. They weren't just protecting seeds, they were protecting a future for all of humanity. That is a just cause. Sinek gives us 5 tests for a true just cause. It must be. For something, it has to be affirmative and optimistic, not just against something. Fighting for the right of every person to provide for their family is more inspiring than fighting against poverty. Inclusive, it must be open to all who want to contribute. It invites people to join a movement bigger than themselves. Service-oriented, the primary benefit must go to others, not just the company or its shareholders. It's about serving people. Resilient, it must be able to endure political, technological, and cultural change. It has to be bigger than any single product you sell. The railroad companies thought they were in the railroad business, not the transportation business. When cars and planes came along, they were left behind. Idealistic, it must be big, bold, and ultimately unachievable. The Founding Fathers of America declared that all men are created equal. Have we achieved that perfectly? No. And we never will. But we will die trying. And that's the point. It gives us a direction to march in, forever. A just cause gives our work meaning. But a cause alone isn't enough. You need people. Which brings us to the second practice: build trusting teams. In an infinite game, you can't advance a grand cause by yourself. You need people who trust each other, and trust isn't something you can demand. It has to be built. And it's built on a foundation of something that makes many tough-minded leaders squirm: vulnerability. Sinek tells the story of Rick Fox, the hard-nosed leader of Shell's Ursa, the biggest deep-sea oil rig ever built. This is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, where one mistake can mean instant death. Fox believed that expressing feelings was a sign of weakness. But a leadership consultant, a Holocaust survivor named Claire Nuer, convinced him that if he wanted his crew to be safe and high-performing, they needed to learn to express their feelings. So, this crew of roughnecks from Louisiana were put into workshops where they sat in circles and talked about their childhoods, their fears, and their relationships. One man broke down in tears talking about his son's terminal illness. They were learning to be vulnerable with each other. And something remarkable happened. As they started to trust each other as human beings, not just as co-workers, the flow of information improved dramatically. They felt safe enough to admit mistakes, to ask for help, to say "I'm not sure how to do this." And the results were staggering. The Ursa rig had one of the best safety records in the industry, and accidents across Shell dropped by 84%. Not only that, their performance went through the roof. Their production was 43% better than industry benchmarks. This reveals a profound truth that the Navy SEALs, one of the highest performing organizations on the planet, live by. They evaluate their members on 2 scales: performance and trust. Performance is your skill, how good you are at your job. Trust is your character, whether you have your teammates' backs. Everyone wants the high performer with high trust. No one wants the low performer with low trust. But what the SEALs discovered is that the high performer with low trust is a toxic team member. They would rather have a medium performer with high trust on their team than a toxic superstar. Why? Because in the long run, trust is what makes a team resilient and adaptable. Performance-obsessed cultures that tolerate toxic high performers eventually rot from the inside out. Building trust means creating what Sinek, borrowing from military culture, calls a circle of safety. It's an environment where people feel safe from their own leaders and colleagues. A new police chief, Jack Cawley, did this at the struggling Castle Rock Police Department. The culture was toxic. Officers felt replaceable and were punished for not writing enough tickets. One of his first acts was simple. He built a fence around the parking lot. For years, officers had asked for one because they felt unsafe walking to their cars in the dark, but were told there was no money for it. That small act sent a huge message: I hear you. I care about your safety. That fence was the beginning of a circle of safety that transformed the entire department. With a just cause to guide you and a trusting team to march with, you need one more thing to keep you sharp. This is the third practice. Study your worthy rivals. In a finite game, you have competitors that you try to beat. In an infinite game, you have worthy rivals. A worthy rival is another player in the game who is so good at what they do, they reveal to you your own weaknesses and push you to improve. You don't have to like them. You don't have to agree with their cause. But you respect their strengths. Think back to Apple and IBM in the early 1980s. IBM was the Navy, big, established, predictable. Apple positioned themselves as the pirates, the rebels empowering the individual. Apple didn't just try to sell a better computer, they used IBM as a foil to clarify their own just cause. Their rivalry wasn't about features, it was about ideology. IBM helped Apple become more Apple. A worthy rival prevents you from becoming complacent. Sinek admits that for years, he was obsessed with beating another author, Adam Grant. He'd check book rankings and feel insecure because Grant's strengths were all of Sinek's weaknesses. But when he shifted his mindset and started seeing Grant as a worthy rival, everything changed. He stopped competing and started learning. They are now dear friends who help each other advance their common cause of sharing ideas. The danger comes when you lose your worthy rival and mistakenly believe you've won. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, America thought it had won the Cold War. Hubris set in. The nation lost its focus, its humility, and its agility. It turned inward, and political division grew because there was no great external rival to unite against. Without a worthy rival, we lose our way. This leads us to the fourth and perhaps most difficult practice: prepare for existential flexibility. An existential flex is the capacity to make a profound strategic shift in order to better advance your just cause, even if it blows up your current, successful business model. This is the ultimate test of an infinite-minded leader. In the early 1950s, Walt Disney was at the top of his game. His animation studio was a creative and financial powerhouse, thanks to revolutionary films like Snow White. But Disney felt the company had become bureaucratic and was losing its soul. It was no longer the best vehicle for his just cause, creating a happy place for families to escape the hardships of reality. So he did something that everyone thought was insane. He quit his own company, mortgaged his life insurance, and sold off assets to start a new, incredibly risky venture, a theme park called Disneyland. He was willing to destroy his own success to find a better way to advance his cause. That is an existential flex. Steve Jobs did the same thing when he saw the graphical user interface GUI at Xerox PARC. Apple had already invested millions in a different path, but Jobs knew the GUI was the future. When an executive told him, "Steve, if we do this, we will blow up our own company," Jobs famously replied, "Better we should blow it up than someone else." That flex led to the Macintosh, which revolutionized personal computing. The opposite of an existential flex is what happened at Kodak. In 1975, a young Kodak engineer named Steven Sasson invented the world's first digital camera. He showed it to the executives, explaining that this could be the future of photography. But Kodak was making billions from film and paper. Digital photography threatened their entire business model. The finite-minded leaders, afraid of disrupting their profitable status quo, chose to suppress the technology. They lacked the vision and the courage to make the flex. And as we all know, other companies developed the technology, and in 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy. They weren't killed by a new technology, they were killed by their own finite mindset. They committed suicide. Making a move like this, going against the grain, takes an immense amount of bravery. Which brings us to the fifth and final practice: demonstrate the courage to lead. Leading with an infinite mindset is not the easy path. The pressure from Wall Street, from investors, from our own egos, to focus on short-term, finite metrics is overwhelming. It takes real courage to put your people before the numbers, to invest in the long term at the expense of the short term, and to stay true to your just cause when it's unpopular. In 2014, CVS, the giant pharmacy chain, made a stunning announcement. They would stop selling all tobacco products in their stores. Their just cause was helping people on their path to better health, and as their CEO realized, selling cigarettes was fundamentally incompatible with that cause. Wall Street was furious. Analysts predicted disaster. One commentator scoffed that this might make money in Oz, but Wall Street is not Oz. They were sacrificing $2 billion in annual revenue for what? A principle? It seemed like a terrible business decision. But the leaders at CVS had the courage to lead. And what happened? A year and a half later, their stock price had nearly doubled, hitting a record high. Other purpose-driven companies started partnering with them. Customers felt a new sense of loyalty. And a study found that in states where CVS had a large market share, overall cigarette sales actually dropped. Their courageous, infinite-minded decision didn't just benefit them, it benefited public health. This kind of courage is not about being a lone hero. Sinek makes it clear that courage comes from having a support system. It comes from having a just cause you believe in, a trusting team that has your back, and a worthy rival that keeps you focused. When a leader lacks this courage, when they succumb to a finite mindset, the culture begins to decay. Sinek calls this ethical fading. This is when a culture allows people to act in unethical ways to advance their own interests, while telling themselves they haven't compromised their morals. It starts small. At Wells Fargo, it started with intense pressure to meet impossible sales quotas. Employees who couldn't meet their numbers were berated and threatened with being fired. So, they started opening millions of fake bank accounts to hit their targets. A few bad apples turned into thousands, a sign of a rotten culture, not just a few rogue employees. At Mylan, the company that makes the life-saving EpiPen, executives were offered huge bonuses if they could double the company's earnings per share. So they raised the price of a 2-pack of EpiPens by over 500%, from $100 to over $600, putting a life-saving drug out of reach for many families. In both cases, good people did bad things, not because they were evil, but because they were part of a system with a finite mindset that rewarded results at any cost. Ultimately, the infinite game is a choice. We are all players in the infinite game of life. We don't get to choose the rules, and we don't get to choose if we play. Our only choice is how we play. Will we live our lives with a finite mindset, obsessed with winning, with being better than others, with accumulating more money or power? Or will we choose to live with an infinite mindset, driven to advance a cause bigger than ourselves, to build trusting relationships, and to leave the game, our lives, our companies, our world? In better shape than we found it? That choice is up to each of us. Commentary. As we close the pages of the infinite game, what strikes me most is how simple, and yet how revolutionary, this idea is. In a world that screams at us to be faster, richer, and number one, Sinek offers a quiet, more profound alternative: be better, be stronger, be more purposeful. Play the long game. For someone your age, standing at the beginning of your career and your adult life, this message is especially powerful. You're going to face immense pressure to play the finite game. To chase the highest salary, the most prestigious title, the fastest promotion. And for a while, winning those finite games can feel good. It gives you a rush, a hit of dopamine. But as Sinek shows us, a life built on a series of finite wins can ultimately feel hollow. It's a hamster wheel. The infinite mindset, on the other hand, offers a path to something more enduring: fulfillment. It asks you not what can I win, but what can I build? Not how can I be the best, but how can I advance a cause I believe in? So, how can you start applying this today, right now? Here are a few simple thoughts. First, start thinking about your own just cause. It doesn't have to be as grand as ending world hunger. It can be small and personal. Maybe your cause is to bring more kindness into your school, or to help your friends feel more confident, or to create art that makes people feel less alone. Find a vision of the future, however small, that inspires you. Write it down. Let it be your compass. Second, look at the people you see as competitors in your life, in academics, in sports, in social circles. Can you reframe them as worthy rivals? Instead of feeling jealousy or a need to tear them down, can you look at their strengths and ask, how can they make me a better version of myself? This single shift can transform envy into inspiration. And finally, practice building trust. In your group projects at school, on your sports team, even within your family. Be the one who takes the small risk to be vulnerable first. Admit when you don't know something. Ask for help. Listen when others speak. Create a small circle of safety around you. You'll be amazed at how people respond, and you'll be building the most essential skill of any great leader. That was a summary of The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. We've touched on the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a photograph of a beautiful landscape. It can show you the scenery, but it can't make you feel the wind on your face or the warmth of the sun. The real magic happens when you read the book yourself. It's in the quiet moments, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is a map, designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something inside you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see your work, your relationships, and your life. Also, if you found this summary valuable, and you want to continue exploring the ideas that shape the world's most successful and fulfilled people, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.